Ladies and gentlemen, this meeting of the Carrollton-Farmers Branch Independent School District is called to order at 7 p.m. on December the 12th, 2013. We thank you all for being here. At this time, would you please rise as Richard Fleming leads our opening prayer and remain standing as Nancy Watton will lead us in the pledge of the U.S. and the Texas flag afterwards.
Please bow your heads. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this day that you've made. We come to you today from many walks of life, yet we are united in one goal of educating all students in Carrollton-Farmers Branch ISD. Thank you for the many blessings that you have bestowed upon our district. Please continue to lead and guide our district leadership. May you always give us the wisdom to make the right decision and give us inspiration to meet the needs of the future. Lastly, I ask that you continue to guide our students and give them vision and courage as they will be our future leaders. In your name we pray, amen.
Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now the Texas flag.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Please be seated. As a district, we dedicate all of our effort and resources to our goal of high achievement for all of our students, and the board uses this goal to guide all of our deliberations, decision, and actions. You will be able to see all deliberation, decision, and actions of the board in open session, with the exception of some items which may be discussed in a closed session, as stipulated under the Texas Government Code, Section 551, commonly known as the Open Meeting Law. These items typically deal with personnel matters, consultation with our attorney, and real estate. For the record, all board members are here this evening, with the exception of Mr. Matthews, who will not be joining us this evening. However, we do constitute a quorum and can conduct business on behalf of the school district. As board members, we each are committed to continuously improve by participation in appropriate continuing education programs annually and as required by board policy BBD. As of today's date, each board member has met the target for completion and exceeding the annually required continuing education credit hours. That being said, we will move to agenda item 2, which is recognition of special guests and announcements. Dr. Burns.
Thank you, Mr. Good. Members of the board, as we begin our VIP recognition tonight, you know, it is the end of the semester time and exam time, so we might as well have a little exam here, right? To close this first semester. So here's my question for you, and that is, how many ways do you think you can use the letters VIP? I'll let you think a little bit, man. You know there are over 140 different ways you can use those letters. Now, let me just give you a few. There's the Vehicle Inspection Program. There's the Visual Identity Program. There's the Very Informed Peers. There's the Very Impatient Person. And, of course, the all-time favorite is there's Very Into Pizza. Well, you know, those are really not the words that accurately describe our VIPs here tonight. And CFB, VIP means Very Important Professional. And we're here tonight to celebrate and honor those professionals. So our very important people who make a difference every day for our students so that we can reach our goal of high achievement. And they have friends and family here tonight, and so if you're here tonight to support and celebrate one of our VIPs, please stand when their name is introduced. And at this time, Mr. Good, if you would join me in the front, and we're going to honor our very important people.
Into pizza.
Good evening. Mr. Good, members of the board, Dr. Burns, and colleagues, my name is Brianna Fox, and I have the pleasure of serving as the assistant principal of Blaylock Middle School. It is my great privilege to introduce Ms. Mindy Lindquist, our fabulous 8th grade language arts teacher, to be recognized as Blaylock's next member of the very important profession of teaching. The motto at Blaylock this year is, "You can do it, we can help." And no teacher exemplifies this concept more than our VIP, Mindy Lindquist. In addition to teaching, she's an active leader in our building, an instrumental member of the PBIS team, the Green Team sponsor, the PTA Environmental Chair, Reflections Contest Coordinator, GT Contact, new teacher mentor, and chairman of the Sunshine Committee. She does all of this with a smile while concurrently working on her master's degree in counseling. Her fellow teachers say it best when they jokingly tell someone who is overcommitting themselves that they are pulling a Lindquist. Miss Lindquist is always willing to help, pitch in, or take over anywhere her help is needed, and she can be counted on to do it with a smile and a servant's heart. Mindy's colleagues describe her beautifully in these comments. She is always, always, always positive. She goes above and beyond to make Blaylock a better place. She looks on the bright side. She finds the good rather than the bad. I see her in the halls welcoming students and encouraging them as they pass throughout the day. Her constant positive attitude can be felt through the entire school, especially when she's the leader of a meeting. She's the hardest working teacher with a true heart for students. When asked what makes Miss Lindquist a great teacher, her student says, "She listens to us and helps us with our problems. She's funny and silly. Miss Lindquist makes you feel happy." And possibly the most simple statement is the most significant. She cares. Mindy's parents, George and Bessie Watkins, have resided in Carrollton for over 50 years. Mindy's mother, an R.L. Turner graduate, serves as a special education teacher, and her father works in downtown Carrollton. CFB ISD is dear to her and her family alike. Joining Ms. Lindquist today is her high school sweetheart and husband, Jeremy, who served as the band director both at Dan F. Long and Creekview. And when asked what inspired her to become a teacher, her grandmother, Edna Farron, has always taught her to give back, and especially to her family and her students' families. Mindy would like to thank her family for being here tonight for their ongoing support as she strives to make the world a better place, one student at a time. To Mindy, the best part of teaching is helping students to see connections between learning and life. Ms. Lindquist leads by example every day. Please join me in congratulating Ms. Mindy Lindquist as the Blaylock Middle School VIP.
Good evening, members of the board and Dr. Burns. I'm Lisa Williams, principal at Davis Elementary School. It's my pleasure to introduce our VIP for 2013-14, Mrs. Manette Gossett. Manette interviewed for a teaching position at Davis 7 years ago, and I knew that she would be a hard-working teacher with a mindset of continuous improvement. I knew she would work beyond exceeds expectations. What I did not know is that Manette would keep me laughing and entertained with her tremendous sense of humor every step of the way, up to and including today. She is always, a highlight of my day, whether observing an interaction with a student or as I watch her transforming a group of students to deeper thinking, richer ideas, and a stronger work ethic. When speaking with her or when watching her lead students, there is a pervasive presence of peace with a sense of joy and an insistence that each person can be better today than yesterday. Manette's 4th grade team describes her as extremely upbeat and positive. As soon as you turn around, she's dancing and has a huge smile on her face just like that. She has a positive attitude, and working with her is a pleasure. She holds her students to high expectations and never settles for less than any student is capable of producing. Davis students respect Mrs. Gossett, and they care about her opinion. Several students told me that they better make good choices and think about other people when making decisions. A student stated, "Mrs. Gossett taught my sister to love writing." Now, here are a few quotes from male students. "Mrs. Gossett is sweet because she helps you understand details and won't quit until you do. She is like a student counselor and helps you solve problems. She is strict, and I would want my child to have her because this 10-year-old, because she teaches discipline and she is a great dancer. I have deep respect and love for you, Manette. Congratulations on a well-deserved honor and induction into the very important profession of teaching."
Dr. Burns, Mr. Good, members of the school board, good evening. My name is Randy Wells. I'm Executive Director of Special Education, and I'm here this evening on behalf of the Marie Huey Special Education Center staff, and I'm delighted to introduce to you Dr. Nikki Arnold, our newest member in the very important profession of teaching. Nikki hails from Amarillo, Texas. She received a bachelor's degree from West Texas A&M University in Canyon. She then followed her husband, Tom, who's here this evening, to the East Coast, where she received a master's degree from Fairfield University in Connecticut. Dr. Arnold received her doctorate in clinical psychology from the University of Hartford in Hartford, Connecticut. During her early training, she spent 1.5 years at the Yale Child Study Center in New Haven. Prior to coming to CFB, Nikki was a psychologist at Collier Center in Dallas. Nikki's been an educator for 17 years, 12 of those years as an educational diagnostician here in CFB. She has served Good Elementary for 12 years, and if you're doing the math, she has a dual assignment. So the first 3 years of the 12 years, she also was at Janie Stark Elementary, and then for the past 9 years, she's been a member of the Autism Evaluation Team. She's also been a mentor to many new educational diagnosticians who have come to CFB over the past 12 years. Nikki is highly regarded by her colleagues for her professionalism and expertise. They have only the nicest things to say about her, especially how accommodating she is. A common theme I hear repeatedly about Nikki is how she treats students, parents, and other staff members with great care and respect. She always puts the students first. Her teammates on the Autism Evaluation Team appreciate working with Nikki. They refer to her as the ultimate team player. She bends over backwards to be helpful. They use words like generous and humble to describe her. She's collaborative, knowledgeable, and most importantly, she volunteers to take challenging cases. Second page. Nikki is truly an asset to our department. Marie Huey Special Education Center and CFB are indeed fortunate to have Dr. Nikki Arnold as a member of the very important profession of teaching.
Good evening, Mr. Good, Dr. Burns, members of the school board. My name is Ashley Brown, and I have the distinct pleasure and privilege of serving as the principal at DeWitt Perry Middle School. I'm very excited this evening to introduce you to our newest member of the very important profession of teaching, Mr. Alexander Carr Campbell. Carr Campbell's career with CFB began in 2001 as a student teacher at Creekview High School. From there, he coached at Ranchview High School and has spent the past 8 years as a teacher at DeWitt Perry Middle School. However, Carr's story of CFB doesn't actually start there. Carr Campbell is a proud graduate of the Carrollton-Farmers Branch School District. In fact, is a Lion, a member of the class of 1988 from R.L. Turner High School. Mr. Campbell teaches Texas history to 7th graders at DeWitt Perry, and anyone who knows middle school knows 7th grade can be tough, but every 7th grader loves being in Coach Campbell's classroom because of the connections and the relationships he establishes with each one of them. Every year, Mr. Campbell goes above and beyond the call of duty to make learning meaningful for his students. He serves as the History Club sponsor, and he and his team transform our school library each year into the mission and dress up as friars to give students modern-day exposure to an element of Texas history. Each year, he chaperones a trail ride that gives kids an educational adventure that they otherwise would certainly not have experienced. Mr. Campbell's students are unabashed in their praise of him. Yamilet commented, "From Coach Campbell, I've learned to believe in myself." Another student, Oziel, proclaimed, "He's nice and he's kind and he taught me what I need to be successful, and he teaches me so much my brain wants to explode." Jasmine said, "He teaches me new stuff every day. Mr. Campbell is a great teacher, and I'm pretty sure he's a great father, too." Indeed, Mr. Campbell brings a father's love and compassion into his classroom and to his students day after day, and for that, they will forever be impacted. DeWitt Perry Middle School and CFB are very fortunate that Mr. Carr Campbell calls us home, and he is so very deserving of being the newest member of the very important profession of teaching.
Good evening, members of the board, Mr. Good and Dr. Burns. My name is Dee Dee Lacey, and I am proud to say that I am the principal of McLaughlin Strickland. We are here tonight to introduce you to our newest member of the very important profession of teaching, Manuel Aguirre. Manuel Aguirre started with us in CFB at a very young age as a student here, first at McLaughlin and graduating from R.L. Turner. Then he became a special education teacher assistant, first at McLaughlin, again, in PBCD, and then at Vivian Field Middle School in Applied Academics. He acted as BRS for summer school at R.L. Turner, and he still works as an in-home trainer for students with autism. As soon as he became a certified teacher, I knew I had to have him at McStrick. We hired him to join the 5th grade team, where he has been for the last 2 years teaching reading, writing, and social studies. Manny, as the staff calls him, is going above and beyond for all of our students every day as a coach, as a leader, and as a role model. As a coach, Manny helps students in multiple grade levels using soccer as an earned reward for doing well in the classroom. You may have read his story in the Dallas Morning News earlier this year. Manny is able to coach 18 boys officially on the soccer team, where he helps raise their confidence level on the field and subsequently in the classroom. This year, Manny didn't stop at 18. He allows any student who would like to practice to come out and show their love for the game, as long as they've earned it in the classroom, of course. In addition, Manny has opened the team up to scrimmaging with After the Bell students and taking Strickland players over to McLaughlin to act as mentors, kicking the ball around with primary students and PPCD students. One student said, "Mr. Aguirre pushes us to be our best. We have to behave well and complete our work so we can play." As a leader, what he has done for our boys with the soccer program has been awesome. However, it has brought our community together in more ways than we could have ever conceived. We have seen an increase in volunteers, parent involvement, and I think it's partially because we see these parents at the games, and then they want to help the school and spread the word to others. Mr. Aguirre officially serves on the multicultural team and the health and fitness committee, but he helps every committee because he wants to impact our community by strengthening our students and partnering with parents. He puts in extra time on the weekends after school, trying to ensure students succeed socially and academically. Mr. Aguirre has been such an inspiration at our school and is very well respected. As a role model, Mr. Aguirre leads by example. He models an amazing work ethic, builds strong relationships with his students. He studies the curriculum with his team and works hard, especially on those anchor charts, which were a little bit of trouble at the beginning, and actively engages with students every day in his classroom. And he has the ability to have fun in the classroom, joking around with the kids, but his students know when it's time to work, and Mr. Aguirre has high expectations for every one of them. Just yesterday, he came into my office to celebrate his students meeting and surpassing their MAP reading goals. Another student has quoted that they really learn social studies in Mr. Aguirre's class because he makes them act out history. His colleagues are able to rely on him to lend a hand with anything that is needed around the school, including interpreting for parents, making home visits, having pep talks for themselves and the children, and mentoring students. To sum it up, Manuel Aguirre is our VIP because he is an exemplary role model and a product of this neighborhood, having grown up much like our students are doing so today. He has a strong sense of teamwork, and he is uniting our community, parents, and staff members, giving the students every possibility to achieve and succeed. Congratulations, Mr. Aguirre.
For our next recognition tonight, we'd like to recognize Bent Tree Bible Church. And I believe we have representative here, Mr. Robbie Gordon from Bent Tree Baptist Church. If you choose to join us up front, as well as the McWhorter staff. Dr. Cordoza, your staff, would y'all? Yeah, absolutely. Everybody come up. It's a teamwork. So, Board Member Mr. Frank Shor will now read a resolution.
Tonight, we recognize Bent Tree Bible Fellowship Church in Carrollton for their involvement in our partnership and education program. We are indeed fortunate to have such an outstanding relationship with Bent Tree, an organization that serves. The members of Bent Tree care about their community and strive to and do make a positive difference. Our partnership is an example of what is possible when a public school and caring individuals work together for the welfare of our community's youth. Bent Tree Bible Fellowship Church has been an outstanding community partner serving McWhorter Elementary School and other CFB ISD students and families. The Board of Trustees expresses its gratitude to Bent Tree Bible Fellowship Church for assisting our students and supporting our schools. They have been serving McWhorter Elementary School since 2005, and their service has not just been for the students. To welcome them back to school, they have also provided lunches and refreshments for the staff at McWhorter. They allowed the McWhorter staff to use their facilities to hold in-service trainings, thereby giving the McWhorter staff the opportunity to further bond and build its strong professional learning community. Each year, Bent Tree Bible Fellowship Church hosts McWhorter students for a Martin Luther King celebration and activities. Bent Tree Bible Fellowship Church coordinates with the Big Brother and Big Sister organizations to provide mentors for those students who need a personal connection and a positive role model. At Christmas, through Bent Tree's Angel Tree program, over 100 children get adopted each year. Through the Angel Tree program, children are provided one item of need, one gift, as well as food for the winter break. For several years, Bent Tree Bible Fellowship Church has also partnered with other community organizations to sponsor the McWhorter Back to School Bash. They have donated backpacks with school supplies to each McWhorter student and brought together families and community members to celebrate the beginning of the new school year. There are even other ways Bent Tree Bible Fellowship Church has benefited CFB. They collected $800 in gift cards so as to allow for the purchase of shoes to allow for students in need. And they provided parent education classes for our Spanish-speaking families at the schools. We are grateful that Bent Tree Bible Fellowship Church has chosen to partner with and support our district. They have cared for the health and well-being of our students and families in so many ways, which, as we know, produces a strong and healthy learning environment. On behalf of the Carrollton-Farmers Branch Independent School District Board of Trustees, and with James Good, President, and Dr. Bobby Burns, Superintendent, presenting, it is our privilege to present this plaque to Bent Tree Bible Fellowship Church, a church organization that truly exemplifies a meaningful relationship between our community and schools. Accepting the plaque is Robbie Gordon, representing Bentry Bible Fellowship Church.
That's awesome.
Mr. Good, members of the board, that concludes our recognitions tonight. We do have announcements. When we break, we will run the announcements. So as we are taking a short break tonight when Mr. Good recesses us, you'll have a chance to see some other things that are happening in the district on the screen. So,
Very good, thank you. To our VIPs, on behalf of the Board of Trustees, we are truly thankful that you will allow us this small opportunity to say thank you for what you really do and how you impact all of the students of our district. And it's just a wonderful experience for us to hear the many things that go on in the classrooms that we fail to think about sometimes, how you work individually and collectively with all of our students. So we're truly thankful we can just have this opportunity. But especially for a couple, that it's a thrill to say, welcome back. We are truly thrilled when we have students from our school district who want to come back to Carrollton-Farmers Branch ISD. I do believe that speaks volumes about our district and what we're able to accomplish with all of our students, their desire to come back and be a part of this community. So thank you all to our VIPs. But also, there's a lot of other collective things that go on to impact our students. And I think you've heard that with the Bent Tree Fellowship Bible Church, how they are able to, at least in one aspect, impact one campus. And it's truly a thrill to hear all the many things that you are doing, and hopefully you will continue for many more years, since you've already been doing it, I believe, for 8 years now. So I hope that that will continue in the future, because it's always a thrill when we can say, when we always talk about it takes a village to educate a child, we can say we do have a village here that's truly working to influence and impact all of our students. So thank you to everyone who makes that impact upon all of our students. I feel like you would all love to stay for the rest of the evening with us. However, I do know that some of you have to be in class in the morning, so we're going to take a 10-minute recess, and we will come back together at 7:40. So at this time, we are adjourned.
Yeah.
You might even want to participate in part of the dialogue. And by that, if I may, before moving on to the next agenda item, I would like to remind the audience that the board encourages comments from all of our citizens of the district or from district employees. Anyone wishing to speak either as an individual or as a representative of group may do so during the agenda item 4A, Audience for Guests. If you would like to speak, please submit your request to do so on one of the forms provided on the table just outside the double doors that lead into the boardroom. And you may place the completed form in the box provided, or you may provide that form to Ms. Sharon Scribner. When the board addresses agenda item 4A, Audience for Guests, you will be then invited to the podium to speak to the board. Now we'll proceed on to the next agenda item, which is agenda item 3A, report by Superintendent, presentation on student achievement instructional rounds. Dr. Burns.
Thank you, Mr. Good. Members of the board, as you know, each board member, we bring you information about student achievement and how we're doing and how we're doing it, is always important as well. And tonight, we're excited to bring you what we think is one of the key instructional practices that we are doing to help us reach high achievement for all our kids and help us continue to improve our individual instructional practice for students, and that's the concept of rounds. And board members, you were at North Texas Area Association recently and got to hear our staff present this, so you have a little insight into the rounds process, but tonight we're going to give you a little bit more depth as well as have this out there for our audience to look at and preview. So I'm going to turn it over now to Ms. Warnock to tell us all about the power of instructional rounds. So, Ms. Warnock.
Dr. Burns, we do believe that instructional rounds is perhaps one of the most transformative practices that we've brought to the district in recent years particularly. Instructional rounds was founded out of some work of professors at Harvard University led by Dr. Richard Elmore, and he stated in one of his writings that isolation is the enemy of improvement. And we often see in classrooms across America isolated practices happening, teachers as independent contractors behind closed doors working, and instructional rounds really helps to break down those walls of isolation and to connect us in a broader learning community. We have up here our little speedometer, we think, because instructional rounds, we believe, is an accelerant for instructional improvement. It helps us to accelerate in the construct of a broader community that is focused around collaboration and continuous improvement. Okay, we're going to hope here we go. We have one goal in our district and one goal for instructional rounds, and that is to improve student achievement. That is the sole focus of our rounds visits. And we do that by focusing on deepening our understanding of the instructional core. This is one of the objectives of our instructional rounds work. And you can see the instructional core is based on three pieces of the triangle. We have the teacher. We want to improve the teacher's knowledge and skills. We want to increase the potential of the student and how they work with content. And we want to increase the rigor and the level of the content. So those are the three bases of our triangle, and the center of that is task. And so that is really what we seek to understand and deepen our understanding of how we can improve those three areas of the instructional core. We also want to clarify the district's language of instruction and its impact on improving student achievement at scale. Rounds really gives us the opportunity to clarify our language. We use, a lot of educationese in our work, in our business, and we use words like rigor, deep learning, critical thinking, sometimes without the understanding that we all have the same common definition of what that means. And rounds helps us to clarify that language and make sure that if we are saying rigor, that we're all on the same page with what that means. Lastly, we want to foster a culture in which classroom instruction drives dialogue and is a catalyst for continuous improvement. Everything that we do as a district should be rooted in what's happening in classrooms across our district and how we improve classroom instruction. So rounds gives us a chance to be in classrooms all day, every week, seeing what's happening and making decisions about professional development and how we move our instructional work forward based on the culture of the classroom. The structure of rounds is a very powerful structure. We meet in the morning for an hour with the network team that is established for that campus visit. There are 7 networks. We have 2 secondary networks and 5 elementary networks. And so there are 5 schools on each of those networks, and that team visits each of those 5 schools throughout the year. We meet for an hour in the morning when we get to the campus, and that time is focused around the adult learning for the network. And then also the campus principal has a chance to talk to us about the history of the campus and then to explain the campus problem of practice. The problem of practice is a problem that campus has identified that they believe if all of the effort of the campus was put into solving that problem, that an increase in student achievement would occur. Some examples of problems of practice that we see across the district are increasing critical thinking of students, increasing academic vocabulary and conceptual understanding, or building student ownership of learning. Those are just a few examples. I had a teacher at Turner who said, the problem of practice quiets the noise. It helps us focus in on the one thing that we're going to all work collectively as a team to improve. We have that learning time, and then the network is divided into a number of teams that go into as many classrooms as possible with the idea of observing. The teachers, as the network visit, they are scientists, they are researchers, they are learners, they are in classrooms only taking notes on the evidence that they see in the classroom around the problem of practice. It's not evaluative, it's about observation. Then the team comes back, and you can see here in the picture, they gather, they analyze the notes that they took in the classroom, they make predictions for the campus, and then suggestions for next level of work that then we share in a debrief. And that next level of work, then the campus team that's there listens, they take the feedback and ideas, and then the campus decides which steps they want to implement and take on as a team at the campus. John Roberts wrote a book, Instructional Rounds in Action, that we've looked at as a resource. And in that text, he describes symmetry, and that high-functioning learning organizations have a symmetry in the learning that they expect the students to do and the learning that they expect the adults to do. And it really is a time of deep critical thinking, analysis, and the power of collaboration is evident. We did a survey in the spring of 2013. I want to share with you some of the quotes that teachers said about the structure and their involvement. Rounds has truly made me a better teacher. It's given me help in strategic thinking and planning. It has also allowed me to help others in my department to build their planning. Another teacher said, I have a new perspective of what it means to be an effective teacher. A third teacher said, the rounds work was valuable for me at a variety of levels. As a classroom teacher, it gave me insight on strategies for increasing student achievement. As an observer, I had the opportunity to reflect on patterns and practices. And finally, as a team member, I was able to collaborate with individuals with different backgrounds and responsibilities. Because that's an important part of the network, that it is comprised of campus administrators, classroom teachers, central office administrators, and instructional coaches and support specialists. So all of those people coming together to examine a problem and dialogue about it. Tell you a little bit about the history of rounds in our district. In 2009-10, there were 3 campuses, McLaughlin-Strickland, DeWitt Perry, and R.L. Turner, and those 3 principals traveled with Dr. Mayer to the training at Harvard and came back and brought this to the district in a pilot for 3 campuses. And the power of having principals participate, there was a desire to grow that from our campus leadership. And this year, for the first time, we have all 34 of our campuses participating in network rounds. So it's been a growing process. Over the course of time, we've gone from adding just the network visit to having a momentum plan that the campuses submit. It's a growing document, it's a living document. They change it and modify it, but that includes what professional development, what data pieces, and then also internal rounds. So we have campuses that might have their network visit where we have people from all over the district coming to visit, but then they're continuing internal visits, perhaps quarterly, with their staff to continue monitoring their progress around the problem of practice. We've also added a pre-conference with the rounds facilitator and the principal to clarify expectations and think through what the rounds visit will look like of the network, and then a post-conference to help be a thinking partner about what the next steps are on the campus and deepening the rounds work. We have a little hitch in the giddy-up here. There it is. Okay. Thank you, Ms. Smith. Okay. There we go.
There it is.
This is Megan Davis. She is a teacher at Country Place, and this was Country Place's first year to have a network visit, but they had had internal rounds last year, and Megan had the opportunity to participate. You're going to hear when she's describing her experience and transformation with rounds, how rounds has become embedded in the culture and the language. She talks about being rounded on, and so it's become just part of our internal vocabulary.
Oh my gosh, another person in my classroom, and now there's going to be 4 people in there, and what are they looking for, and just so overwhelmed. And then I was rounded on, it was painless, and then I had the opportunity to attend Dr. Mayer's training, and through that training I kind of realized that this is such a helpful tool. It's not evaluative at all, and it really can help your campus grow.
Okay, we're going to start that over with the sound.
How my mindset has changed, and when I first got rounded on last year, I just remember thinking, oh my gosh, another person in my classroom, and now there's going to be 4 people in there, and what are they looking for, and just so overwhelmed. And then I was rounded on, it was painless, and then I had the opportunity to attend Dr. Mayer's training, and through that training I kind of realized that this is such a helpful tool. It's not evaluative at all, and it really can help your campus grow by making your problem a practice and working towards a way to solve that problem and kind of help you guys grow as teachers, and it's just a great tool.
Thank you. So Ms. Davis really highlights an important part that we want to identify, that there is a little bit of skepticism or concern at the beginning that this is a practice about evaluation. And the more teachers we have involved and the more participating, the more we really see that it is about analysis, about making the entire campus better. It's not about individual teachers. It's about looking at patterns across a building and really across our district. We gave a survey, I mentioned earlier, in the spring of 2013, and we had 94% of the teachers who participated in rounds state that they believed that it made a significant improvement in student achievement. So 94% of the teachers agreed or strongly agreed that rounds was making an impact in student achievement. This year, we have 266 staff members participating in our district network visits, and that number is multiplied when you look at the number of teachers who are participating on internal campus visits. So we have had a significant critical mass of our culture engaged in this work. And we believe that that is tremendously important. Again, we see that rounds is an accelerant to move and transform a district in a broader structure of improvement where we have conditions for continuous learning and a desire to improve achievement, and we do believe it will continue to be transformative for the district. So that concludes our presentation, Mr. Good. We have a summary of notes in your board book so that you have some takeaway statements.
Very good.
And Mr. Good, if I might add to Ms. Warnock's comments tonight, when I go visit campuses, I always ask the principal, tell me what you consider to be the most effective initiative going on at your campus to improve instructional practice, and overwhelmingly they always tell me instructional rounds, always. It's because of, as Ms. Warnock presented, it's about getting deep into the practice of instruction, which is really what makes learning happen, and them seeing it in a very deep analysis that they're starting to transform their practices and keep improving it. The other thing I want to say is that, Dr. Mayer told us she was going to retire, but actually I think she's working more presenting rounds to all the other districts that are trying to catch us up here on this ranking now, and so I'm a little ticked with her that she's out there sharing some of our inside secrets. But nonetheless, we do believe it's one of the most important things that we're doing, again, to make achievement happen, but more specifically to improve instructional practice, which is where achievement happens. So,
You know what she's doing?
Very good.
she's working with us some too, but that's, when she's going to tell these other districts, I'm a little
Training them.
we should have had some kind of a non-compete clause or something in there or something.
Very good. Board members, other questions?
Yes, I have one.
Ms. Watson.
How do you select the teachers that are going to receive instructional rounds?
Well, the principals select who they wish to serve on their campus instructional rounds team. And then we have had some campuses that have asked that their entire campus be trained. We've opened up more training so that principals can send more and more teachers, and we're starting to see some principals have one group of teachers participate on a couple of visits, another group participate on the next couple of visits so that they can widen the number that are participating.
But, I mean, how do you select the teacher that's going to receive the instructional rounds?
Oh, that is going to be observed? Yeah.
And being rounded up.
Okay, being rounded on. The principal of the building sets the schedule, and so they select the teachers that are going to be observed and look for a variety of content. So we want to see, math, language arts, science. We want to see a variety of levels. I think at secondary school you would want to see an AP, you'd want to see on-level instruction, you'd want to see some pre-AP. So it's really, we say that in our pre-visit, we want to see a variety. At elementary, we want to see K through 5. We want to see specials, because all of that impacts the entire building. And
So the teacher that's being rounded does not feel that she's been selected for specific reasons.
Sure. I can't speak to how an individual teacher might feel, but that certainly would never be the goal or the purpose. The purpose really is to look at patterns across a building. And, most principals, as we're working with, they try to choose a different set of teachers every time for their internal visits or then for the network visits, so that they eventually get feedback across the entire campus.
Ms. Warnock, you might share with them how kind of the feedback from that is shared with the staff, because it's not shared individually, it's shared as a collective whole.
You can see here the feedback as it's collected. I'm sorry, I'm having trouble with the remote. Ms. Smith, can you go to the center, the structure? Into that picture. So as the data comes in, and then this is how it's shared back with staff at faculty meetings or during learning time in professional learning communities. You can see it's very holistic. It isn't about individual teachers. So these were the levels of questions that were captured in classrooms across a campus, and then the evidence, captured in sticky notes. One of the teachers commented at the rounds visit we were at this past week that I couldn't even tell you what anybody was wearing today because they were so focused on taking the data and then how that translates across the broader spectrum of the school.
Mr. Shackman.
3 questions came to mind. Is there any longitudinal data that tells us the value of rounds, or is this really kind of a new program that's kind of sweeping the country? Second thing kind of in my mind, how many people actually are involved? We have 7 networks. So on a day when network rounds are going, how many teachers are taken from classrooms or campuses? They're going to others. I'm just not quite understanding the structure. And third question is, how much all this cost us?
Okay. The first question is, in terms of longitudinal data, it is a recent, I would say 2009-10 was the first year that Harvard did the training. So it's recent. It's also very difficult when you look at longitudinal data or achievement data to isolate rounds as an intervention from all of the other interventions that are happening in schools. This is something that I'm interested in doing more research about, the impact on achievement, but it's very difficult because you can't separate that from tutoring, from RTI intervention, from reading recovery intervention. So that kind of data might be impossible to collect unless you set up a very controlled and experimental group. The second question about how the networks are functioning and how many teachers would be out of classrooms. The networks are 24, comprised of 24 people, and about half of that is campus staff, some administrative, some teachers, and about half of that is central office staff. We have several campuses that have teachers rotating through, but the most a teacher would be out of the classroom would be 5 days over the course of the year. if they were participating in every network visit for their network, unless the principal had them participating in internal rounds visits as well. So we know that time out of the classroom is, it's always a wait, time in the classroom, time out of the classroom, but we also know we have to sharpen our saw. And, a day spent with really deep thinking, learning about instruction, makes the other 172 days in the classroom more valuable. The third question about how much all of this costs, it's the cost of subs for the classroom teachers that are out. So, because we facilitate the training, we are the rounds facilitators, so that's part of our work and job. So it's the cost of subs for those teachers.
Yeah, and if I could add to that, Mr. Shaman, it is some of the best professional development we get, and at a very reasonable cost, because it is only costing us a sub. It's not costing us the trainers and all that, because that's internal. We have trained our own people to do that. With the exception of Dr. Maester may start charging us after she gets off, but it is...
Non-compete.
Yeah, really. So it is really a great opportunity to not only see what we need to do to be improving the practice, but at the professional development, teachers will tell you it's one of the most fulfilling days they have in really getting to talk about instruction. They love to talk about it, and then to see it in this kind of in-depth kind of analysis. And the other thing I would say is that we know in this business there's not any direct cause and effect. There's a lot of correlations in effect size. What we know is that we're changing practice for the better, and that's why we can continue to see achievement get better. And I would contend a big part of why we went from 17 to 7. I really believe that. I mean, of all the things that we have, we have a multitude of things. So I couldn't say one thing has caused that. We have great teachers. They continue to get better and work at it. But this process has helped facilitate that. And all of that together, I think, is what's helped us climb really the ranking ladder, so to speak, and make some pretty huge gains. So,
We want to keep getting better.
Mr. Shor.
I think this segues nicely from Mr. Shackman's questions. And listening to what you had to say, Georgiana, I'm not certain that we know how to measure the efficacy of this. But if the district were a golfer, I'm understanding this to be honing our golf swing.
great.
And I know one trustee who would probably be interested in hearing, hey, we can teach our teachers of our golf swing if we could do X, Y, Z more. I think this is one of the most important things that we can be doing. And so to the extent that we can measure this, following Mr. Shackman's questions, and/or if we find that, hey, we can improve our teaching of our teachers, I know one trustee who'd be very supportive of that. And if we had to cancel football, we cancel football.
Well, we do believe that this allows us to improve our professional development of our teachers because it allows us to focus on what we see as needs and student achievement across the district. So absolutely, we think it's valuable.
Yeah, I'd add just a little bit, Mr. Shor, to your comments here. I think it will help us be more precise in where we're spending our money because we've done this, because we've been analyzed what part of the swing we need to work on and make sure we're putting the resources in that part. You know, if the stance is what we got to fix, we need to know that and then start fixing it.
Ms. Klein.
Last year during football season, there was a homecoming parade at a high school, and there was an elementary school that was announced they would not be going. They were doing rounds. So I said, well, why are they doing that on the parade day? And there was a clamoring and a passion from the elementary school teachers that I asked just off the cuff of how important the rounds were and how they were desperately looking forward to them. So I decided in my engineering way to just go back about my other business. But it was interesting, the protection of that day was really reserved for that, and it was more important than anything else. And that it was a huge effort to get all the right people there, and they wouldn't dare budge. It was that important. So I respected it after I got that feedback, and I thought, well, more important than the homecoming parade, but you do have to keep things in perspective.
That's important.
So I just wasn't as sure before then exactly what it was, and thank you for your information tonight.
Good. Board members, other questions? Final question, I guess, since no one else has one. Do you know whether the idea of instructional rounds is moving to the collegiate level, that is, new teachers entering the profession of education are being exposed to these ideas prior to starting their professional career?
I'm not sure that I could speak to that with great certainty. I think that it is a growing, and some programs and some professors, I think that they would have understanding of. And I know some of the universities that we're partnering with, we're having discussion about rounds. But I couldn't speak with great certainty that that's embedded across all teacher preparation programs.
Okay, appreciate that.
Mr. Gooden, again, I know I keep adding to everything tonight, so I wonder when I'm going to be quiet, but...
Value-added superintendent.
Yeah. I think what we are being able to provide for at the collegiate level is the things that we see that those teachers need to be working on. So whether it's questioning strategies or what those things that now in their training, are they addressing those things that we see? If you could help them get better at this before they ever get here, exponentially they're going to get better through this process. So it does have a kind of an indirect way of bubbling back up because we're isolating those skills that we think are very necessary to keep improving instruction.
Okay.
So.
Very good. Ms. Warnock, thank you for the presentation.
Thank you.
With that, we will move on. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll remind you one more time that if you wish to speak to the board during agenda item 4A, which is audience for guests, please complete the form as I indicated. It's on the table outside the boardroom, and provide that information to Mrs. Scribner. And then at this time, Ms. Scribner, have there been any submittals?
No, sir.
Very good. We will move on to agenda item 4, board operations. The first item is agenda 4A, audience for guests. Having none, we will then move on to agenda item 4B, the consent agenda. The consent agenda is a mechanism that the board uses to approve a number of routine items together with a single vote. In compliance with the Texas Open Meeting Act, the public notice for this meeting includes the list of all the consent agenda items, and the board has been provided ample information about these items in advance. Prior to any action taken on the consent agenda, board members may request withdrawal of any individual item for clarification or discussion. At this time, board members, are there any items you would like to be removed from the consent agenda at this time?
Mr. Good, recommend we remove 4B5, the consider approval of booster clubs.
Very good. Any other items? Board members, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda with the exception of item 4B5? Mr. Shor.
Move that we approve the consent agenda with the exception of item 4B5.
And a second by Ms. Klein. Any additional discussion? Seeing none, hearing none. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda, please signify by raising your hand. That is unanimous. Agenda item 4B5, which is consider approval of booster clubs and PTAs. Mr. Shackman.
Mr. Good, as we were discussing this item, it is significant, and we wanted to pull it as a board because there was a wording that we noted in here. We want to recognize booster clubs. As a board, we don't approve them, and so we want the wording to say recognize, but we also felt it was incredibly important for everyone to realize that our booster clubs, our PTAs, folks that volunteer and work on behalf of our students and in support of our district make all the difference in the world in education here. And they are, and we want to continue to encourage all of those people to be involved in so many ways. And even though as a board we don't approve the outside organizations, we do recognize them. We are thankful for each of them. And if there's anything that we can do to work with those organizations in ways that help as they support us, we want to do that. And so I would make a motion that we would approve 4B5 with the wording that we recognize booster clubs and PTAs for 2013 and 14 for this school year.
Very good. Do I have a second?
Second.
Ms. Watton, any discussion?
Yeah.
Mr. Shor?
I'm going to echo a lot of what Mr. Shackman said. And by the way, I was terribly impressed with the knowledge that each of you expressed regarding the myriad booster clubs that we possess. I have trouble recognizing the 43 schools we have, and each of you knew more than 43 booster clubs. So I'm impressed with that. But I'm not certain that we, as a governing body, need to or should recognize and/or approve. And when we talk about the word approve, we're really talking about sanctioning, where sanctioning is not a disciplinary action, but rather it is like an endorsement of the existence of the body. And I suggest that as a governing body, that is not our bailiwick. That is not something that we do. In terms of recognizing booster clubs and PTAs, I think Mr. Shackman's comments about the value that each one of those clubs and the value of each one of those clubs' members provides to the district is worthy of recognition, and I applaud each club and each member and Mr. Shackman's recognition of them. But again, I don't think we as a governing body are required or are supposed to give official commendation to any booster club. And for that reason, I think the appropriate action of this governing body is to take no action regarding this item.
And
Yes, ma'am.
I think one thing we learned is that the principals on each campus actually are not responsible, but are the ones that are recognizing each booster club's existence and allowing them to be a booster club on that campus. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Mr. Shor, you made a motion.
No, Mr. Shackman.
My motion would
No,
be
no,
to
no.
defeat.
He made a motion to the motion. I want to make sure that we take no action, he said. Was that a motion, sir?
It was discussion.
It must
It was
not
a discussion.
It was discussion.
Okay, I want a clarification.
Yeah.
Because being that that was a discussion, I would suggest, Dr. Burns, you take that under advisement for future considerations. At this time, though, we do have a motion and a second to consider recognizing all of our booster clubs and PTAs. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. There are 4 for it, 2 opposed, Mr. Shor and Ms. Klein.
Did I vote opposed?
Or shall I say, let me make sure. Those opposed, please signify by raising your hand. There are 2, Mr. Shor and Ms. Klein. Thank you very much. However, the motion does pass. Thank you. For future considerations, we will ask the superintendent to consider the best and most appropriate way in the future to handle that.
Will do.
Okay. With that, we'll move on to agenda item 4C, which is report of continuing education credit earned by Carrollton-Farmers Branch ISD board members. Based upon the information that has been provided, the records indicate that all board members have exceeded the continuing education assessment required hours. Board members, are there any questions you may have regarding that? Yeah. Mr. Short.
How do we get our hours to carry forward to next year?
I suggest you go back to TASB and discuss that with them.
February,
I don't think they're cumulative over the years.
I know what I'm doing in February.
With that, just so long as the record indicates that we have, all board members have exceeded the number of required hours. And with that, we will move on to agenda item 4D, consider all matters concerning the CFB ISD Board of Trustees Standards of Professional Practice. That is an action item, and I will defer to Ms. Klein, who chaired the committee that went through our Standards of Professional Practice. Ms. Klein?
Thank you, Mr. Good. As you may recall, I believe we adopted these in early 2010, so almost 4 years ago. And each year, we have a commitment made annually to revisit them and make sure that we're still happy with the wording. And, you know, we have a lot of experts at wordsmithing. And so we solicited comments from the board, and we appreciate those that we received. And the committee members were Mr. Matthews, who is not here tonight due to another commitment, Ms. Watton, and me. And we spent time going through page by page and discussing what our comments were. What I would offer to the board tonight is we can either, once again, go through page by page if you'd like and discuss the recommended comments we made, or if you would like to suggest maybe if a summary would be more to your liking, I would be happy to strive to achieve either.
I have some questions regarding continuing education.
Okay. Is there a page number?
Well, there's not a page number on here. Page number, it's right up under elections, so it's kind of, I have mine tabbed.
Let's see if there's one.
Page 20.
Yeah.
What page?
Page 20.
20.
We got in red, approved board member continuing education programs. I guess what are we?
That would be under the bullet, the board shall, that one shall determine priority
Yes.
areas for
Yes.
continuing education for each member
Exactly.
with the use of an annual continuing education calendar.
Approved board member continuing education programs. What are we saying, I guess?
I think it's elaborated on a little below in the
Yeah.
blue about accruing TASB board training credit. There are TASA TASB, there's Summer Leadership Institute, there's the workshops that the region holds, and there's the Leadership TASB and North Texas Association of Area School Boards, but all the courses that drive training credits that we just reported on our last agenda item for the board.
So we're saying that we're only going to hold just these classes for approved training.
For reimbursement, and, you know, they're the only ones that receive credit.
That's not exactly true if we go to the next page.
Okay.
Where if the board president approves something in advance, that's also reimbursable. And so it looks to me that the categories listed, the bullet points below, or starting with TASB online training going down, I think what we are saying is those things are, as a board, pre-approved.
Board president discretion.
No, the next page, the bullet points I just referenced are already, each board member knows in advance, these are pre-approved.
Right.
These are pre-approved. And if it's not one of those sessions, conventions, whatever, then if you want to ensure being reimbursed, you would go to the president and state your case as to why this is of value. That's how I interpret that.
And the next one I have is on page 11.
Okay.
At the top, it says, "No board member shall maintain the same board office position for no more than 3." I guess it's been changed to 3 from 2.
That's
Just wanna know
proposed.
Yeah, what previously was in there was 2.
Right.
And the discussion at our subcommittee meeting was a recommendation from one of the attendees that 3 might be, it's not 12, the suggestion, and if you want to chime in, Ms. Watton, but the discussion was that the first year you're learning, and the second year,
Well, that was my suggestion, only because especially the board presidency has become a really difficult position, and I think it takes at least a year just to learn what you're doing as a president. And so I think 2 years is too short of a time, and 3 years is plenty of time, and definitely it shouldn't be a lifetime position.
that was the origin of that concept. It was just a recommendation because of what we did when we put the 2 years in was we were trying to drive more officers' positions being held by more board members, so more experience was attained. But it's really, the board that decides this.
If I may, before we continue the discussion, board members, would you like to go through page by page and just quickly highlight what those changes were? Or how would you like to approach this document? Because
President Nancy just give a summary of what the changes were.
okay, I would like a clarification on what the board would like to see us do, so Ms. Klein will know how to address it.
I like the summary.
Okay. Mr. Shor, you had a question?
I like the summary of the summary. But I do have, I think that we need to call ourselves on something.
Okay.
So if we go back to page 20, okay, 1, 2, 3, fourth bullet point. And this is in black, so it's been in our operating procedures for a while. The board shall determine priority areas for continuing education for each member during the upcoming year, okay? If we're doing that, that's news to me.
Well, and
That was one of the ones.
Ms. Watton did notice there's something else in here we're supposed to do earlier that we're not doing.
I was intended to address that because I was wondering, do we have some required curriculum for training?
Well, first year board members do
Right.
by law.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay?
right.
Yeah, you want me to recite them?
But if we're doing that sentence I just read, maybe, I applaud each of you for doing it.
Yeah.
Are there any
Requesting
recommendations?
an agenda item for that one.
I would,
Is that what you're requesting
I would.
for a future board meeting? An
Yeah,
agenda
that we-
item for
that-
discussion?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Well, one of the other things that we found we're not doing is a section about appointing board members to attend the PTA meetings and things.
I watch John Matthews for all of that.
So John Matthews has been nominated for all those.
Well, hopefully not all of them.
On page 3, we struggled with how to explain how often we meet and when, but we were just trying to wordsmith it. Hopefully, we didn't mess it up.
Okay.
Those were the major changes, as you've seen.
Okay.
I think, like I said, highlighting a few things that, there was a verbal one. Let me see. Oh, there was a verbal comment that is not in here. Do not let people go over the 3-minute audience for guest time. I think we try real hard,
Yeah.
Yeah, but I was...
other than turning off the mic.
Because I think we've let too many people go over the 3 minutes, and I think we need to be firmer about that.
I would like
Okay.
to requisition a long cane with a hook. Okay? See if we got that in the budget, Mark, okay?
I believe that's an area,
Word
though, that we
supplies.
can self-regulate without having some formal
Well,
policy.
we need to do it.
Okay.
The
If that's the
other-
board's wish, we can definitely do it.
The other question in here is let me find, where's the one on board? Okay, spouse guests on page 21. If a spouse travels with a board member, the district only reimburses. And this says an exception would be made for an event where the spouse or guest is expected to attend and help represent the district, like a meal. the subcommittee struck that exception, and just want to point that out to your attention. We are open to comments on that one. We are not real picky. It was just the way it had been in the past. We want to make sure that we concur on how it's done. You know, we can go either way, or I could go either way. I'm not sure about Mr. Matthews, who's not here, but Ms. Watton.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I think it should be clarified that the spouse, when we go to conventions, that the spouse is not included in the expenses from the school district. And Dr. Burns clarified the fact that many times in a luncheon, it's just filling, a spouse is filling a spot that's already been paid for.
Correct.
So in many cases, they are not expected to have to pay for a spot that's already been paid for, and that, you know, often we buy a table and we can't fill a table, so.
So maybe we would remove the line we struck and allow
I didn't see anything wrong with it.
the line being.
The original one?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll put that back in. We were finding things to talk about at our subcommittee meeting, so we'll welcome anybody that wants to attend.
You know, I think we need to be cognizant of something. This is a volunteer position. And it takes, some of our spouses are glad we're here and not with them. But some of them enjoy spending time with their spouses, okay?
And some of us like our board members' spouses.
Exactly. And I think when somebody is willing to serve, and they have a spouse or significant other, and they attend a legitimate function with their board trustee, I think it's pretty cheesy to say, we're getting your time, we're getting your devotion, we're getting your input, we're getting your knowledge, we ain't going to pay for your spouse to be here. I think that's pretty cheesy.
Well, and our context was when Ms. Watton's husband was on the board years ago, that's the way it was. So we just thought, well, let's throw it out there and at least have some discussion. So we've accomplished our discussion. Mr. Shackman, do you have any?
No, I agree with Mr. Shor. And
Cheesy might be a harsh term
maybe
to
a bit.
describe our.
What have you used a different term, but there are ladies
I
and
would say,
gentlemen here.
Hyatt-ish.
That's a new term we can add to our internal vocabulary.
Board members, do you think it's appropriate, though, we might want to make a clarification here, because I understand what's been said, because were we talking about a convention out of town, and you're traveling to another city where there is a financial cost for transportation, especially if you're flying, it's not the school district's responsibility to fly your your spouse, with you to that convention. However, that is somewhat different than local activities where the school district buys a table and then spouses are invited just to ensure that that table is filled.
I have a recommended wording.
Okay.
Instead of an exception may be made, because it looks like maybe that exception includes travel, I wrote, however, there may be local events where, and then just leave the rest in there. The board member and spouse guests are expected and invited to represent the district.
although I would suggest it's not necessary because it fits underneath the heading board travel.
Yeah.
You know, it's not talking about local things, it's talking about when you go to Santa Fe or when you go to, Timbuktu.
Yeah.
So.
You're right.
Should be in another spot.
So, okay.
I think maybe
Ms. Scrivener, are you clear?
I think so.
It's
we will
good.
go back to the original wording. Correct? Is what we agreeing to?
Yes.
That the original wording is acceptable because we're only talking about board travel expenses. That's the actual title for that category of what we're discussing. I want to make sure we have consensus on that, board members.
Yes.
Is that okay, Ms. Klein, with your committee?
Yes.
Okay. Other comments, board members, on other things? Or Ms. Klein, are there other things you think we should be aware of?
No, just the district committee representation was the only other thing we saw that we weren't necessarily,
What page is that on?
well, on the old copy, it was on page 11.
How many hours a week does John Matthews work?
He's got several hours he works.
You're awful, Frank.
But I think, Ms. Watton has been serving on the SHAC committee, and she attends PTA meetings. I think, it's...
But I'm able to do it. I don't have a real job. So, during the day. So I'm available, and I have no problem representing us on, I used to represent us also on the Educational Foundation, but that's way too early in the morning for me.
What time is that?
So that would work for someone who works, you're saying? That would work for Mr. Shor?
Yeah.
At 7:30, and it's
Mr.
only
Good is-
quarterly now, it's not monthly.
What day of the week is it?
It's typically on a Tuesday, I believe, when they're going to hold it. but
Tuesday morning?
It's only quarterly.
Tuesday morning.
That would just take me out of yoga.
Every month on a Tuesday at 7:30 in the morning.
I thought it was quarterly.
It's quarterly
Quarterly now.
not monthly.
Well, I think the new president has changed it back to monthly.
Well, last time I talked to him, it was still quarterly.
Oh, really? Quarterly. Oh, that's
Quarterly, I heard.
That may
Let's say
attract more
quarterly.
interest, Mr. Good.
I'll sign up for that.
So Mr. Shor will do that.
I think it's appropriate, though, we do talk about this because it means a lot to these committees when they see board members and superintendent at those activities. It stands out in their mind, and it does add legitimacy and credibility to what that committee is all about. So we need to figure out a way that we can have representation at those various entities.
What are you going to inflict me on?
At this time, Mr. Shor, maybe this is a point for discussion at a
Well, and it's
near
also the
meeting.
board president appoints.
I would be happy to do that in individual discussion with each board member to see what would be appropriate. Because when I look at board members, I see us attending many activities already. And at different times, all of us are there, and other times, only a couple of us are there. And so maybe we'll just add some logical sequencing to ensure that everybody at one time or another has the opportunity to visit each one of those committees to appreciate what they really do. So I'll be more than happy to have individual discussions with board members to see if we can work that out and schedule that out. Would that be the most acceptable way?
Sure. Go for it.
Well, some of these meet once a year,
Well, I
so,
signed you up for the one to meet once a year.
yeah.
Sure, understand.
And I think, like the technology and the safety.
It's really
Yeah.
important that we be represented on the DIC.
Well, I hear that those presentations are a lot like what we already have.
I heard
So that would
that.
need to be someone that likes to see things
Yeah, but
twice,
I
right,
just
Dr.
think
Burns?
The visibility would be
Yeah.
important for a board member to be on the DIC.
DIC?
Okay. If it's acceptable, then, Dr. Burns, maybe you and I should discuss this.
We will.
And then, from our discussion, I will then be able to address that with the individual board members, and we can go from there. But definitely, if the opportunity is available, I definitely encourage all board members to be able to attend a few of these activities throughout a school year. And over a period of time, over a period of years, hopefully, you'll be able to attend every one of them, so you will have a knowledge of what those committees are doing. Dr. Burns, do you have any comments regarding that?
Only one, Mr. Good, in that you and I can get together and you can decide, and then we can create a system and make sure that we track that for you, and you know who's done what and who's been on
Okay.
what, and we can kind of, annually, you can revisit and share, and if you've done one for a while, you may want to do a different one
Right.
in a couple of years. So we'll need to start tracking that for you, so you'll know who's done what.
Okay, Ms. Klein, I don't know.
For example, I'm on the SHAC committee, and it's very essential that a board member be on that SHAC committee and the safety committee, because I'm I just think for an awareness of what's going on.
Absolutely.
But also feedback, they often ask for feedback from a board member at the SHAC committee because they touch on a lot of things that it has to do more with the nutrition and also the safety. Like we had a presentation yesterday on lightning and how the coaches handle lightning on the fields, and so it's a very informative committee and on things that are happening around the school district, and they often ask me for information or ask me to take things back to the board. So.
Okay.
And all of these committees are advisory in nature. They just give input into the staff. It always comes back, if it is a board decision, would come back collectively to the board. So you're there serving as both your board member hat and a community hat to give input, as Ms. Watton said, to give insight to things, and then all that's taken back, and then if there is some kind of policy action or event, it would obviously come back to you if appropriate. So.
Okay. The implementation process, board members, as I've got identified here, the superintendent and the board president will first meet and discuss this and have an identification of all dates for all of these events so that the board president can then go to each board member with those dates so we can determine which board members can definitely make that and would like to attend it, realizing, like I said, you are conscious of the fact you will accomplish this over a period of years also, that you'll be able to attend all the different activities. Does that sound acceptable? I believe it does, Ms. Klein.
Yes.
Is there anything else, Ms. Klein?
There was only one other thing we changed, and it was about when contacted by citizens, and it was just one little, like, wordsmith, and now it's escaping me, but it was minor.
What page was it?
Oh, here it is on page 16. Let's see if I did it correctly. Maybe not. Below the numbered blues, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I had underlined underneath the next bullet that's not numbered, a board member may assure a complainant that she will pass on the complaint or concern as appropriate. And I'm not sure why we underlined that, Ms. Watton. I think it was just more, we thought it was a really good comment.
Yeah.
That was it. So,
emphasize it.
other than that, we were just wordsmithing, trying to find things to fix, but
Okay.
we didn't find anything
You almost
else.
had a full night.
Yeah,
Okay.
well, we had a hard time scheduling around Mr. Matthews' busy schedule, so we were glad that we found that time. But that is all that the committee brought forward, and we're looking for board
Okay.
acceptance or...
Board members, this is an action item. Based upon our discussion and understanding what we have discussed and the information we have provided Ms. Scrivener, do we have a motion to approve the Board of Trustees Standard of Professional Practice?
As amended?
As amended. Mr. Shackman.
Mr. Good, I would propose that we adopt as amended the standards as presented.
I'd
Okay,
like
I
to
have
second that, please.
Well, this came from committee. Doesn't require a second.
You
It
didn't
came
have to
from
if you didn't
committee.
want to, no.
But however, would someone like to second that motion? Mr. Fleming?
Yes.
Okay, very good. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. That is unanimous. Very good. Thank you. Agenda item 5A is comments regarding posted agenda items from board members. Board members, you have Mr. Shor.
On behalf of the board members who didn't serve in the subcommittee with Ms. Klein, we want to thank you for the effort that you put into this.
Yes, ma'am.
We can see by the proposed revisions that you applied yourself with diligence, and we thank you for doing that.
Very good.
Amen.
Thank you, Mr. Shor.
Any other comments? We will move on to Agenda Item 6, closed meeting as authorized under Texas Government Code, including but not limited to section... Before I read all of this, Dr. Burns, do we have anything for closed?
No, sir, we do not.
Therefore, there's no need to read
That's
this.
absolutely correct.
With that, we can then skip Agenda Item 7. Board members, final last chance. We're moving to Agenda Item 8, which is adjournment.
Do we have to?
We have reached the end of our agenda, and with that, we are adjourned at 8:40.
James,
Thank you very much.
you really know how to make it.